This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on President's Address to the Nation on the eve of Republic Day. The participants are Dr. A. Surya Prakash, political analyst, and S. Rangabashyam, anchor.
Mr. Surya Prakash, a warm welcome to the program. The Honorable President of India, in her address to the nation on the eve of Republic Day, touched upon a number of issues and the agenda. We'll talk about each one of them. But to begin with, she made a mention that, when we look back with joy and pride, that how far we have traveled despite adversaries. So probably she is indicating, giving a hint to the kind of problems which we have seen in the last, 75 years of being a republic. But despite that, we have moved on and done well.
Absolutely. I heard her address to the nation. Very significant because it marks the 75th year of our republic. And it's a good time to look back, and she says that we must gratefully remember the work of the Constituent Assembly, and she looks back with pride at the progress achieved by the country. There can be no doubt about that, and all citizens who are living today, that is 1,450 million of them, when they reflect over where we began, the starting point on 15th August 1947, the economic issues that were there, the social issues that were there, and the political, and the advance that we have made as a nation and as a democracy. In my view, we are the most vibrant democracy in the world, and we are the most diverse society in the world. That is why the President touched upon this aspect of democracy and diversity, how one is as important as the other and one is central as much of significance as the other. And that is what India is all about, democracy and diversity. And the way we have managed over these last 75 years, it's a remarkable journey of patience, struggle, grit and determination of several generations of Indians, and truly a very proud moment for all of us.
Kind of, compare ourselves with our contemporaries and compatriots at that particular point in time, not only nations in Asia, but even across the world. We have done well, and in the last, more than 7 decades, we have had a very stable political system. Whereas in other countries, we have seen, undergoing coup attempts and political instability and whatnot.
You see, our greatest strength is our democracy and our democratic tradition. Because as I said, we are the most diverse society in the world. And given that diversity, the best system that suits us is an ideal democratic system and environment. And our constitution, provides the framework for that. In fact, I must tell you that having examined the constitutions of dozens of nations, I can assert that the basket of rights that are available to religious and linguistic minorities in the Indian Constitution is simply not there anywhere else. Ours is a truly democratic nation, and constitution is a 360-degree kind of this thing in regard to our rights. And that is why the President referred to that in her speech today when she spoke of democracy and diversity. And that she spoke about Karpuri Thakur, a champion of social justice, who has just been awarded the Bharat Ratna. Truly deserving. And whether it is Dr. Ambedkar or people like Karpuri Thakur who came later on the scene in the 1960s, 70s, and many of the great revolutionaries, the Jayaprakash Narayan and so on and so forth, who have led this country and given our democracy and this thing a great amount of meaning and significance. The other thing, she spoke about the Ram Temple, and she said it's a landmark and a rediscovery of our civilizational heritage. This is a very significant statement by the President. And more importantly, she said, such a development has taken place after judicial process. It is a testament to the people's enormous trust in the judicial process. And it is very, very significant and important for us to understand the significance and meaning of that. We may have differences, we may have disputes, but the only mark that is there in a democratic society is judicial process to resolve disputes. And that is what has happened in respect of the whole Ram Janmabhoomi case. Finally, there was a verdict by Supreme Court, and there was this Bhavya Ram Mandir, which was inaugurated just a few days ago.
We are talking about the Ram Temple, and the Honorable President said that it's a testament to people's enormous trust in the judicial process.
Correct.
And all these years, ever since it was rekindled way back in 1992, from there on, this is also commendable, Mr. Prakash, that the people of the country have been really patient and have trusted the judicial process and waited all these years, rather 3 decades, for the verdict to come out. And after that, it has been taken to the logical conclusion.
That patience in respect of the majority community in this country, the kind of patience it has exercised and the democratic process that has been followed in resolving a matter like this is truly commendable, and that is what will keep this nation going forward. And as I said, our constitution is the foundation on which this republic rests, and remarkable balance between fundamental rights and directive principles that I see in our constitution. That directive principles ensure social justice. And if you just look back at the last 10 years of the Narendra Modi government, the phenomenal thrust in the social sector, and that is what the president referred to today. She spoke about the social sector and what things have been achieved there. And she referred to, we have approximately, I think, about 250 million households in the country. And to provide piped drinking water to 140 million households is a phenomenal thing. I don't know if there is any other country in the world which can plan and execute something like. So this has been done by the government. Then the LPG program, where 100 million households have been provided subsidized LPG connections.
Cylinders, yeah.
And also the home for the poor, the millions of homes that have been built for the poor. I think it's a very major development and very, very important, the Swachh Bharat program. 110 million households have been funded to build toilets. I don't think there is any other country in the world which will even plan something like this and execute it. So the president has referred to these things in her address, and truly we ought to be proud of these developments. And as I said, the constitution is very clear in regard to social justice. Social justice. That component you see in the directive principles. Very happy that present government especially paid a lot of attention to that.
Mr. Surya Prakash, you're talking about the Constitution. Actually, the Honorable President, very early at the start of her address, said that, tomorrow is the day when we celebrate the commencement of the Constitution. Its preamble begins with the words, "We the people." She's hinting at something. She's giving a big message, reminding the people of this country that our constitution, the preamble of the constitution, starts with these very words, "We the people of India." That's kind of reinforcing and endorsing the democratic values, which actually is nothing new to the country. We have had democratic tradition and systems much earlier, and only those 200 years of colonial rule, it wasn't there. But before that, it was very much a part of the ethos of this nation. Isn't it, sir?
Absolutely. For several years I have studied democracy in ancient and modern India. And it's truly phenomenal, the democratic traditions that were there in the Vedic age and in the subsequent ages in this country. So, it's not a surprise. If you see the Constitution of India today, all the fundamental rights that we have, all the rights of linguistic and religious minorities, and the directive principles, the directions that are given to the state, how to take care of women, children, the underprivileged and poor and so on and so forth, and then the health and welfare of people, how that should be important for governments and so on. You see that, you look at Chanakya's Arthashastra and go back to the Vedic times, you see these traditions. The other point I want to make is, we are a republic. Republic means we elect our head of state. I can tell you that there are more than half nations in the world are not republics. So I regard being a republic as very fundamental to being a democracy. And we are very proud that we have had some exceptional presidents and coming from different walks of life. And whatever their status may have been socially, politically, economically, otherwise, at the beginning of their lives, they all have the potential to be the head of state in India. That is what a republic is all about. And we have achieved that, and we have succeeded as a republic. And these are all very important. And the other thing I must tell you, the other day the Prime Minister said 80% of the contingent in the Republic Day parade tomorrow will comprise of women. What an extraordinary achievement that is. When we talk of diversity, you see, gender, to ensure parity in regard to gender. 70% of the homes registered under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana registered in the names of the women of the house. Again, there is a 200% rise in the recruitment of women in the armed forces, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is an extraordinary development, and most important, reservation for women. 1/3 of the seats will be reserved for women in parliament and state legislatures. And the president referred to that. What a big achievement that is for a nation as big as ours. And this is truly, as I said, a very important moment and a happy moment for our republic. Also, I must tell you one or two other things that have happened in recent years. The abrogation of Article 370, the GST, Common Indirect Tax Regime for states and centre. These are all things, people said it can never be achieved. Article 370, nobody dreamt that you could abolish it and see better future for state of Jammu and Kashmir. And that has been done. And what change has come about there? The whole idea of fraternity, equality that was missing in Kashmir before the abrogation of 370, you can see it now because all those municipal workers and all others have got voting rights in Kashmir. They have got the right to buy property there. These are all major developments that have been achieved. And the president is talking about overall the achievements of the country over the last 75 years, and recent achievements are very, very big.
Mr. Surya Prakash, let's also talk about the economy. The Honorable President, made a mention that, the health of our economy is really robust, and among major economies, we are doing really well, and the GDP's growth rate has been extraordinarily good, especially when you compare it with other, comparable major economies in the world. At the same time, she also made a mention about the government scheme of providing free food grains to over 81 crore people for the next 5 years. So that is really commendable.
Can you think of any other nation which provides, free rations to 810 million people? These numbers are absolutely mind-boggling. That we are able to do it, that we do it month after month. Like I said about the LPG scheme or the toilet scheme, Swachh Bharat, or Nal Se Jal scheme. I mean, these are all big ticket issues beyond this social sector. And more important, you referred to the economy. Let me just go back to the Narasimha Rao era. When Prime Minister Narasimha Rao took charge, we had pledged gold to the Bank of England for $200 million foreign exchange, which we did not have at that time for imports. By the time he demitted office, it had risen to $50 billion. In 2014, when Mr. Narendra Modi became Prime Minister, our foreign exchange reserves were $300 billion. Today, it has crossed $600 billion. And as the President said, look at our GDP growth rate over the last few years, which is steadily rising and one of the highest in the world. And what has this done to the economy, to the overall prosperity of people, and the per capita income of people over the last 10-15 years, the rise that we see there? These are all huge achievements for a nation as big as ours. And truly, Republic Day is a moment, of reflection and satisfaction on what has been achieved, and it's also a date for a resolve to complete the uncompleted or incomplete task.
On that wonderful thought, let's wind up this discussion. Mr. Surya Prakash, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on President's address to the nation on the eve of Republic Day. The participants were Dr. A. Surya Prakash, political analyst, and S. Rangabashyam, anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 928-909-4044.